Hi, my name is Kristen and I'm your host for Icons of Naples, this series where we honor our Naples community heroes, our movers, shakers, and history makers who helped make our community the place we love to call home. Hello. Today we are honored to welcome Paul Arsenault as our Icon of Naples. Not only an acclaimed artist, but a storyteller, a preservationist, and a witness to the city of Naples' transformation. Together, we're going to explore how he first discovered Naples, Paul's history as an artist, as well as all the changes he's seen unfold in our community since he got here in the 70s. Paul, thank you so much for joining us today. It's so great to finally have you on.
It's a pleasure. I'm happy to be here.
I have followed your work since we have some calendars we're going to cover. Since I first got your calendar from a friend of mine, Karen, who also recommended you for the show. We used to give them out as gifts way back in the day. So you've been doing this a very long time. But take us back and set the stage for your early childhood, because I read that your parents were really into being an artist, but you were kind of gifted at a very young age.
Well, I was the discovery of my early talent as a kid. It was Lincoln's birthday. It was before my kindergarten class. There was a TV show, Draw Along with Captain Bob, and I drew along Abraham Lincoln. And when my mother came down and I showed her the drawing of Lincoln, the blood left her face and she ran from room to room. Who's in my house? Who did this? Who's here? And I just kind of sat back and just kind of took note as to how significant paper and pencil could be. It's not that my parents didn't want me to be an artist. My grandmother did paint. My aunt painted. But my aunt was a nurse, and we got her Christmas cards every year, alternating between she was living in Anchorage, Alaska, and she would alternate between Inuit children and Eskimo children, and proceeds went to their particular tribes, which kind of gave me the idea of using art as your agenda and as a fundraiser. But getting back to practical life choices, my father, a banker, didn't quite see the practicality of art being sustainable necessarily. So he and my mother were just trying to guide things more in the direction of if you want to be creative, get a job with your creativity, teach, illustration, advertising. But I just wanted to be a fine artist because, I wasn't necessarily a great student, but I loved reading the lives of the artists, and I would go to the library and look at the art that was available. Oh my God, these great artists! And reading their lives, it was just something that just kind of drew me to having that freedom to express as a person in his time.
Wow! And so here you are. I mean, you made a full career of this.
I have.
Wow. And so that goes back to following your passion too.
Absolutely.
You can make it work if you follow it.
Right. A lot of peanut butter and sardines at first, but if you want to do it, you got to do it.
Yeah, you got to take the good with the for this. You have to make the sacrifice for the success is what I say. Yes. Now, and also just before I forget, because I was looking through the book that you gave me to look at, and there was a story about your dad with the boats. How the boat sat in the water or something.
Oh, yeah, right.
And I said, so that made me look at all the pictures of the boats. And there's a thing there.
Well, it's, I was the oldest of five, and so it wasn't like I got a lot of attention specifically. It was just, and because I kind of went my way as a somewhat as an artist wannabe, as opposed to anything else. There wasn't much he could really say, and we didn't have that much dialogue. But when he saw a painting of mine, of a boat. And I was raised in a very picturesque harbor town, and I love boats. My grandfather had a storied lumber schooner, and he was a sailor in the war, and so he knew boats. And when it wasn't sitting in the water, it was one of the best pieces of advice he gave me. Make it sit in the water. And so that's what I've been doing ever since, is making the boat sit in the water.
Yeah, I noticed that, and after I read it, and then I noticed it, and then I started paying attention to all of them, and I was like, oh yeah, they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's neat. That's neat. So when you are the oldest of five, you don't get a lot of interaction because there's younger ones that need that more attention.
Absolutely, no, it's.
But it was great advice.
I preferred it that way.
Well, then you could do you.
Pardon me?
You could do you
Yeah.
without a lot of interference.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Yeah.
The great things we learn as we recall about our parents later on, and you're like, man, that was really a gift. So now let's fast forward to Naples. You came here in the early 70s, correct? And I remember reading that your first art show was downtown.
Yeah.
And you had to get a sidewalk permit. So take us back to first what drew you to Naples, and then tell us about that show.
Well,
Any shows, really.
Well, how I found Naples was I actually came to Florida as a deckhand on a ship, a research vessel, and interestingly, we were sent to work with the Smithsonian to collect marine samples in Fort Pierce. At Harbor Branch, where we, with the projected onslaught of population, it was to assess marine life. So we took samples from the Gulf Stream to the Indian River Lagoon, and so it was most interesting to just see the bounty and the rich variety of things. And it really gave, being a deckhand, I was just kind of, chipping rust and painting. It wasn't like I was assessing things, but it was in the environment of assessing the environment. And plus I met a very famous artist there right away, who was a landscape painter. And he was my first Floridian. First house I was in was his studio. But I was to meet a rendezvous with someone here in Naples. It was kind of a casual rendezvous, so casual they never showed up. And so when I was hooked up with this guy named Swamper, I said, I hitchhiked from the ship. I said, so Swamper, if this was your first day in Naples, where would you go? He said, well, if I would want to spend my first day in Naples, I would go to the Corkscrew Swamp. Being Swamper, I should have expected. So, and then hitchhiking out there, it was very, very lonely road at the time. And the guy who picked me up was a neighboring property owner to his Corkscrew. And, but I went there. And not being an overtly spiritual person, I had a very spiritual encounter. It was like the Cathedral of Cyprus, and I just had this primal surge from that was absolutely complete. And it was just one of those, as God is my witness, go back to the ship, get your gear, and come to Naples and begin your career. And that's what I did.
Wow. So now, where did you first land in Naples? What part of town?
Well, it's funny. I was, hitchhiking, and the guy that picked me up hitchhiking was a guy named Charlie. And I was just telling him, my story. And he said, man, when you get back to town, just give me a call. We'll try to get you set up and all. So basically, I couldn't get a hold of him. He was a photog for the competing paper of the Daily News. It was the Naples Star. And so I couldn't get him. And so I was at the Norris Center, and at the payphone, and so I called him and I got him, And he said, well, where are you? I said, well, I'm at this community center. It looks like I'm a corner of 8th and 8th. I'm at the payphone inside. He said, take 2 steps to the right and look straight forward. And out the door was the little red Volkswagen he had picked me up in.
Oh.
And so my first stint in Naples was on the couch of that guest cottage that's still there right now.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, that's just how it began. And as far as my first show goes, I kind of determined that, a nice concentration of people relaxed and in the shade that would be appreciate perhaps a show of paintings was in what was then Swan Court, which is the outside dining for Campiellas. And so
that's right. It used to be open there.
Yeah, right. So I borrowed some screens from the Art Association, and with Charlie having the graphic thing going with the paper, a press release, photograph, and I had the press there, and then the first person that came was one of the esteemed local artists and co-founder of the Art Association. Elsie Upham bought my first painting in town.
Oh, that's amazing. What a story.
Mm-hmm.
I did forget now, for people that don't know where Campiello's is, that used to be all open. It used to go all the way. I mean, you can still walk through. There's just a kind of a half dining room there.
Crack into tables, right?
Yeah, and looking back, I always wondered, going in there, in my 20s or so, I always wondered, like, this is odd, like this, but because I moved here in 78, so I was young, so I don't remember some of things. But when you walk in there and then you kind of make the left, go to the indoor-outdoor bathroom area, you say, this is kind of an interesting architectural way to do things. Oh, because it used to be open, and they just kind of half enclosed it in a way. Yeah, more history of Naples. Now, you came from a Northeastern landscape tradition. So how do you evolve painting? Because I'm from the Northeast, I'm from Connecticut, and the landscape areas are so much different than ours, but it's still landscape. So can you explain to us how that transitions from New England to Florida?
Well, when you are a landscape painter, the key to that is to adapt to where you are, and which means you have a whole new atmosphere, the light, the foliage, the architecture. You adapt, and when you look at artists' careers, and when you see the northern clime paintings that they do, and then you eventually they end up in the tropics, or those that do, you see their variation of the theme. And in the tradition of the landscape painters that I did like, say for instance Winslow Homer, you can't get any more New England than Winslow. But you can't get any more tropical than Winslow too. When you look at his paintings of Key West, of the Bahamas, of Cuba, they're magnificent. And you can't beat them even today in certain ways. One of the leading painters of the Cape Ann art colony was Emile Gruppi. He moved to Naples in '53 with his family. He was a co-founder of the McNichols Gallery. He actually moved into the guest cottage on my property, the Yellow Cottage. That's where the family first arrived, that is it's not like a stretch. It's a wonderful challenge, not only for the new landscape of tropical light, color, but the warmth of a tropical option in the winter is very welcome to a plein air painter.
Wow, I did not know that. That's some deep history there. And I'm going to totally deviate from my questions here. When it comes to the art associations, what's the oldest one we have in Naples?
Well, it's the Art Association. I guess it's still happening.
Just the Art Association of Naples.
There used to be. I don't even know if it's still happening. The Friends of the Art Museum, and that was made up of the art collectors and art enthusiasts that were of the community that were engaged with bringing in exhibitions that were, somewhat relevant to our community. There were fabulous shows that were of world-class artists that were brought in. It was the Bradley Gallery that was at the Depot where they brought in these great shows that were world-class, like I say. And they eventually went up to Artists Naples, or the Philharmonic, when that became a happening thing. So that's where they went. But for instance, I was asked to be curator of Rob Storter's show, The Cracker in the Glades. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
That's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Well,
Storter.
Storter, right.
Yeah.
Well, when his daddy bought the Rod and Gun Club, and he was raised in Everglades.
Yeah.
He was a beloved person, and it was a great joy to meet someone like him that was a true pioneer family, and his charm as a very dear person, and he was a great folk artist, and he had a great window from the get-go of how this county and town evolved.
Wow. Yeah, I know the name, and that's one of those names like we talked about previously, like these old time names that we're trying to capture here, and as many of the stories as we can get. So when you think of Naples, can you describe a sense of place of Naples, what the essence you aim to capture? And I don't even know if I like this question, to be honest. I don't even understand what I wrote. Sometimes that happens when I'm writing things. So I think what I was trying to say was, when you look at something, how do you decide how you're going to capture it? What space you're going to use on it? Is there like an angle, a corner, or it just comes to you?
Yeah, it's the great trick to becoming a successful traveling painter is to really focus in on what makes this place, what makes this spot on this place particular in its essence that you're after. Is it the funk of the working waterfront? Is it the beauty of the vegetation? Is it the architecture and the way it sits in its place? So it's and each place does have a distinctive quality if it's just not another cookie cutter neighborhood. So what you want to do is just capture that essence in a spirit and an atmosphere.
Okay. Yeah, because when I'm again looking through the book, sometimes you stop and you go, now what makes you decide to do that spot? You know, as I'm looking at it, and that makes sense. You see the bigger picture, and then you kind of narrow it down to, okay, this captures everything I'm looking at in this section.
Right, and if there's a season where it's the blooming, flowering trees, which I love, whether it's the yellow tabebuia or the poincianas or the beautiful jacarandas, that's, if I want to paint that block and I see that there's one of those trees, come spring, I'll come back, so.
And that's something you have to do as an artist too, is sometimes you say, well, I like it, but.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to like it better when this happens.
That's right.
And that's patience. That's part of the job.
Well, yeah, it's just part of it. Yeah.
Wow. So I also read you've traveled to a lot of places. So out of all the travels you've done, is there a place that you say really touched either your heart or your artistic heart, or both?
My favorite island of the West Indies is Dominica. And it's kind of funny. I had just landed in St. Bartholomew, which has become very fashionable. Yeah. But back then it was just an intriguing. Yes, it was fancy, but it certainly didn't have the hyper allure it does now for that.
I get the impression back in the day, back then it was more bohemian than it was Versace.
Right. Well, there were fashion shoots with Paris Vogue, but they were more like outliers. But still, but I was with a good buddy of mine, and I said, so where should we go? I had a successful show in Boston. He said, I was just down in St. Bart's. Let's go down there. So we go there and load up our gear, and our gear is being loaded up in the Jeep that this gal, the proprietor of the hotel, he just thought we should land at first. And she was great, and she was, and she threw a little party that night, and so it was, contessas and counts. It was pretty fancy. So some guy comes up to me. So what are you doing here? I said, well, I just arrived today. I've come to paint the West Indies. And he looked at me and he said, and you came to St. Bart's? I said, yeah. I mean, where would you go? And he just kind of looked at his drink and he just thought for a moment. He said, well, if I wanted the essence of the West Indies, I would go to Dominica. Oh. And so, and he was right. And that was, from the get-go, I was corrected in what I was hoping for or assuming. But when I arrived there in Dominica, it's the nature island. And when you ask any islander from the Caribbean who's traveled all over, what's your favorite island? Chances are it would be Dominica if they didn't play golf or because anyway, the thing of it is, it was just becoming. I arrived 7 months before independence. There were no galleries, no art supplies. So another one of those unusual departures from my mode. I decided, well, you know what? I had some fun with St. Bart's. Why don't I give a little something back? And so I started a art cooperative for Dominica. And the artists that we got together became the artists of the island, and they're the ones that are in the hotels now. And it was a terrific place to to explore, and they became independent and all. And interestingly, my first fundraiser in Naples was the grand opening of the Naples Depot by the Heritage Foundation.
Okay. Yeah.
And Dominica had just been slammed by the worst hurricane to hit land. It defoliated the place. And of the 65,000 living there, of the 75,000 living there, 65,000 were left homeless. And so my first fundraiser was at the depot for hurricane-devastated Dominica.
It really sounds like a passion project place for you over the years. Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow. Mm-hmm. And I love the art cooperative idea.
Well, it was just something that became, there was no other way to just kind of get something going and get the community involved. And it was terrific. We got an art center and a gallery, but it got all wiped away with David.
Wow.
So, anyway.
No, that's a great story. Thank you for sharing. So when it comes to Naples, coming back here again.
Sure.
When it comes to landmarks or vistas, have you found yourself returning to certain ones over the years? Is there a repetition you prefer, or it changes? Is there other places you kind of, I'm going to go back here because it's changed, or I just like this area?
Well, because of the fragility of the beaches and how things change, one of my favorite spots is Barefoot Beach in Wiggins Pass. And that changes a lot.
All the time.
The time. And so that's a great place to go. In fact, one of our, my wife Eileen and I, we have one little routine of the year to go on a picnic Easter Sunday to have our special occasion. And I do a painting of Barefoot and Wiggins annually there. So just because it's always different. But the alleys are very unique, or I should say identifiable aspect of Naples, and the way they the little cottages out back of the main houses, just kind of randomly on the property lines or within the setbacks, it becomes kind of a little island look, and it's there's an added charm. But more and more the alleys are just being shifted into the new properties and the new development.
They become driveways. They've become driveways and garages and not so much guest houses. And,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When I first moved here, we lived, I'd have to ask my mother what street it was on, or Karen would know, or you would know. There were all these little homes that were like 2-bedroom, 1 bath. And it was almost like they were on one parcel, but it was probably 2. And there was about 6 of them. And you just kind of parked and you would walk, and either you lived in this one or you lived in that one. And I think I was 10, so this had to be 78. And I remember walking around. This was my first impression, And I was like, wow, this is so neat, It's so green and it's so pretty. And I remember, I think it was probably, Karen told me, she sent me a picture, and she said, they're taking them. And they tore them down. I think it was probably 2008. It had to be before so 8 or so. Might have been 8. It might have been 16. I don't know. One of those 2 production years downtown. And it was so sad because I remember I used to drive by and I'd be like, I think that's where we lived. And it's the essence of the old Naples area is, it's something people come for, but it's also something that's changing sometimes because of a flood. That's one of it. But it's sad. Like I go to 8th Avenue, and I met the owner who saved the 2 houses that are there. The white one that has like the lighthouse looking building with the peach color, and then the one in front. And I met him. He was working. I said, "Do you own these?" He's like, "Yeah," because I noticed the colors are the same of his own personal home. And I said, "Thank you. Thank you so much." And he said, I just couldn't, because I couldn't tell if I didn't want to live next to the construction or I just couldn't see them go because I've seen them for years. But he was also told that if it happens again, he probably wouldn't be able to rebuild them.
Right.
Because they only give you like one time around on that, I guess. I have yet to meet the woman who, I've met her caretaker that lives in the house on the other side, the brownish house up towards the beach. She's on the beach. It has the 2-car garage guest and the big banyan in the second yard. And I'd love to meet her because she's another one. She's like, no, we're just going to fix it up and keep it. But those streets are disappearing. And also your places that you've captured. We were just talking about the calendar. So tell me the story about that. Let's dive right into that one because I'm on it, the architecture part. You've been doing these since
2016 was my first, so it was a 10-year run.
Yeah,
and actually I just wanted to start doing the paintings that I was doing anyway and put them together and to give a little snippet as to this is this image, but this is the backstory, and just to give a little story about where it came from, the provenance of how it was situated, people that were there. There's just various certain nuggets that make you appreciate a place when it has just a little something that you can look at it and appreciate that. Oh yeah, we had one of those back home, or something like that.
Right. Well, and then you were saying Broad Avenue. You did 26 was.
Well, no. When we experienced Hurricane Ian, we've been living in our house for 40 years without a drop of water in it. And Ian put 3 feet of water throughout the property. And so that really was a rude awakening to things for a lot of people. And a lot of people in Old Naples, because it's so low lying, it's a circumstance that basically we had to just accept and or not. And what I suspected in the next year that things are going to be very different, because the next generation, if the parents don't want to deal with it, the next generation is generally unlikely, because of whether it's multiple family members. Let's just sell it, because a lot of Old Naples hasn't been available for the developers, the speculators, and all of that. And so suddenly these old cottages, sweet old cottages, are up for grabs, and so they are. I just felt that my next year calendar after the hurricane should be the most intact block architecturally on the beach, and that was Broad Avenue South. Yeah. And so that was the cover. And by the time the calendar came out and all, the middle cottage was torn down, and it was a big house. So it's just the inevitable way it's going, and it's not sustainable with these storms getting more threatening, and especially when last October there was two in 2 weeks. Ian, as much as the chamber would like to admit it was a one-off,
right.
It's just something to be sustainable. Raising things up 4 feet would be really helpful for Correct. Most of anything that would be Correct. Coming down the pike, unless it was a situation like Sanibel, which was a huge
devastating.
Surge. Yeah,
mm-hmm. Devastating. When I look at places like you were saying, sometimes even if it's not a storm, you have multi-generational families who maybe lived there, but really it was the grandparents or maybe the parents. Mm-hmm. And then the kids, a lot of them, I think I went to high school here, mm-hmm. and maybe 20 people, 30 people still live in Naples out of 270. Mm-hmm. They're just gone. Some of them passed away, but not as many as moved away, kind mm-hmm. of thing. And so when you have 5 people that own a house, I noticed it happened in Port Royal first, because people had lived there for so long that when the parents would pass away or the grandparents would pass away, then the developer could get a hold of the house. Mm-hmm. But really, Old Naples seemed to just stay for a while.
Well, for a while, yeah.
And even North Naples, there were some things that happened. North Naples seemed to flood a little bit more, and there weren't a lot of changes. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden it was like, we're changing. Mm-hmm. That's it. Right. Today. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Today's the day it's going to change. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I agree with you. Like it's going to happen. It's inevitable. And that's why we wanted to do this series so much is not only to capture, your art, for example, but also the stories and the history. Mm-hmm. And, again, so this is great. Mm-hmm. and when you look at a place, thinking of the changes, do you paint a place like in Naples knowing its history, or do you just visually decide to go for it?
Well, I think it's more, especially when I was doing the calendars, I was basically trying to get pictorially the best images I could find of Naples that had a certain aspect that made it a Naples landscape, whether it was the vegetation or its aspect to the water, or architecturally, I pretty much have covered the best of the
yes.
the landmarks.
I agree.
And of course you can do them in different light, and you can do them horizontal and vertical, and you can mm-hmm. you can wrench out these holdouts of the landmark domain by presenting it in different ways. But what you want to do is to be as effective in honoring your place. And I don't want to be repetitious or predictable. And that's why, sadly, I'm not going to have the calendar this year, but I'm coming out with the book, the Artful History of Naples and Collier County. But I'm still going to be shy of going to the supermarket because I have a lot of old fans appreciating me with just saying, "I love your calendar, I love your calendar." So I won't be.
They're going to be, "Where's your calendar? Where's your calendar?"
Right. So the book is going to really be able to show a lot of how things evolved. I mean, it's looking at 100 years of Naples and Collier, but I've got 50 years of that. And you know, when I first went out painting, I learned right away. It's one thing to come back with a painting, but if you come back with a painting and a story, it's a real successful day.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, I agree with that. Mm-hmm. And that, I mean, I don't even have words when I think of the history, the experiences. I do coaching, life coaching, and I try to tell people there's so much you can experience. You just have to get out there. And I deal with some people who are shy or they've had trauma or whatever. But once you can just experience it and share that with the next person, it really opens up future possibilities, but also your own soul, I think. And I think art does that too. Mm-hmm. Weirdly, I have these, like, I don't know, just how I feel about it. Mm-hmm. I could be right, I could be wrong, but I find that if you can express yourself in some sort of form, mm-hmm. it really fulfills another side of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right, exactly.
Now, if you had to, and we talked about the storm, but now you've been here since the 70s, so you've seen a lot of change. Mm-hmm. Is there anything, or is it just the storm, that was the most dramatic change you've seen in Naples architecturally?
Well, yes. What you saw back earlier on was you saw the scale of these cottages. You saw the fruit trees on the property. Mm. You saw the engagement of the people. That these weren't houses that were speculative or houses to flip. People lived there, and they were people that loved this community. They appreciated the community, and so there was an added dimension of camaraderie with the community in their love of community. So now it's the numbers are huge. It's much different, there was magnificent mangoes. They got around to the best of mangoes. Everyone had avocados and citrus. It was really kind of fun that you could really live off your backyard, and not only that, you had you didn't have the mega variety of flowers, but the first gardenia bush was brought in by the Haldermans, the first house in town, and so everyone had gardenias, or generally speaking. So there was a certain sweet aspect that you felt it lived in and loved.
I think that also goes to some of the cultural changes that we've seen. Mm-hmm. Is there's more speculative, more seasonal. Mm-hmm. Different people have moved in since then. On the cultural side, someone had mentioned to me once, they said when the Philharmonic comes in, this is back then, mm-hmm. so I was probably in 16, 17, I'm in part of the conversation with the adults. And they said when the Philharmonic comes in, it's going to change the culture of Naples. And I didn't understand it until I got older. Mm-hmm. Having restaurants, I mean, most people don't realize all the restaurants that closed down in the summer because there just was no people.
Right.
But they said that. So what do you think about the cultural changes? I mean, we have more arts than we had. We have the Norris Center. We always had the Norris Center, but we have the one that was built by Fleshman. We have a lot of performing arts now. What do you think about the cultural changes that have happened?
Well, the cultural changes have happened in a way that is kind of academic. There are, there's curators brought in. There's people that are brought in by the boards that are making up these organizations. Many times they're new to the community. Many times that's how they engage socially. And so there's not necessarily, and culturally, you don't have to be engaged to the community. You can just be engaged to art and culture. But there was a lot more of a connectivity to the community arts than just bringing in ringers from all corners that are either young and only relating to the current themes and basically it's when you look at the art galleries, there are they used to close in the summer too, by the way, but there's a different kind of a art makeup gallery wise. The rents are huge.
Yes.
And so consequently you need to sell paintings. So you need to be successful with your stable of artists and your clientele.
Yeah.
And so and many times that is more of a seasonal fashion than a community situation.
Yeah, and that goes back to who we have living here at the same time, correct? So, this has been an incredible first half of our conversation because we do have to break. An incredible journey through time so far about time and canvas and architecture. And Paul reminds us that art is more than just color on a page. It tells a story. Mm-hmm. So we are going to deep dive more into our conversation with Paul in our part 2. So stay tuned. Make sure you come back, like, share, follow, subscribe to the Icons of Naples podcast and series. And we will be back on part 2 with Paul shortly.